Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And welcome to this week's Thoughtful Thursday. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Hacking Your Leadership. Leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you listen to. And don't forget to check out our YouTube and Patreon pages. The links are in the podcast description. On today's episode, I want to talk about something that piqued my interest because of some Bureau of Labor Statistics data that came out recently around a multi-generational workforce. And this was surprising data to me. It said that the unemployment rate for people between the ages of 55 and 64 was the lowest of any age group in the country. However, if a person between 55 and 64 becomes unemployed, the length of time they spend unemployed is higher than any other group in the country at more than 40 weeks. And to me, what this says is that, people like experience, they like skill, they like not getting rid of somebody if they're doing their job well and keeping them on, that no one likes turnover, having to retrain people. So if you're in a job and you're doing well, you're typically going to stay there. But that if you leave a job, and it doesn't matter what the reason is, and you're between 55 and 64, you will have a much more difficult time finding the next job. And to me, those two kind of statistics have a hard time working together. It seems like the motivation for one would negate the motivation for the other, but maybe I'm wrong. What do you think about this? Have you seen this happen? You know about some older Americans, the kind of the older end of the Gen Xers now, having a harder time finding work if they're unemployed?
I can't say necessarily that I have witnessed it, but I could also understand it because I think that a lot of the jobs now, like I'm just thinking about the workspace now, like those that are really out there recruiting heavy, and like when you and I see things like on LinkedIn and stuff like that, you have like a lot of fintech and startup and kind of technology driven and all these types of jobs. And again, maybe it's just because of the industries that we're in and kind of what we see on our feeds, but I could see where those maybe in certain industries or jobs or positions where they have tenure, they have experience, they have a comfort level, they kind of know how to do the things that they're doing, going somewhere else and kind of having to learn new systems, new technology could be something that would be difficult. I mean, in full transparency, it could be difficult for me. You get really comfortable with how things work, and you're like, I have no idea how any of this stuff works, and there is quite a big learning curve. And I even think of like my family members that are kind of in that demographic that have had jobs for a long time. To your point, have left the job for whatever the multitude of reasons are, and then have had kind of big gaps before starting the new one. And it's not that they haven't applied, it's not that they haven't gone out there and done interviews. I just think that from what I've had in the conversations with them, that's kind of what leads to that, is that it is like I feel like I'm behind. I feel like I don't know the vernacular. I feel like I'm not comfortable with exactly what the expectations of the work is because I've never done this type of work or had to use this technology or these systems in the way that I've had to do in the past.
I think part of this reason is rooted in something positive but executed poorly. And here's what I mean by that. I think a lot of leaders out there are realizing the importance of team cohesion. They're realizing the importance of teams that can collaborate well together, especially in a post-pandemic world where you might not always be in the same room. You might have to be able to collaborate over a Zoom call or whatever and be able to get work done but via communication methods that weren't necessarily as widely used 2 years ago. And that's hard in and of itself. It was hard to have team cohesion. If you're a great leader and you're in an office, sometimes there are still issues of team cohesion you have to kind of work through and try to make sure people work together. So kind of trying to hedge your bets to make sure that you're not setting yourself up for failure, I think is a good thing. It's a natural thing to do. I think what that leads to is people seeing anybody who doesn't fit in with the rest of the team and thinking, maybe I don't want to even open that door to start. And while opening the door to a lack of team cohesion is a problem and you shouldn't do that, it's the thought that this would lead to that becomes the issue. A person is who they are from a personality standpoint. There are plenty of people who are nice and competent and qualified and who get along with everybody they're in the room with who are 25 and 65. And there are plenty of jerks who are 25 and 65. And I don't want either age jerk on my team. I want people who get along with people. But this kind of like knee jerk, this kind of like, looking at a resume or seeing people don't even put their age on a resume anymore. But if you see, hey, I worked for this organization for 25 years, starting in 1972, it's like, oh, you can kind of make assumptions here about how old somebody is. And that will lead some leaders to think, if the average age of the people on my team is 26 and there's no one over 32, what's it going to do to my team to have someone on the team who is double that age? Are they going to respond to somebody? Or is the person who's older going to think that they have a natural responsibility to lead that team as opposed to just being a contributor? All of these things are questions you can answer in an interview process that might qualify or disqualify the person. And so, Lorenzo, what I want to ask you is, what are some of the things that you look for? And I know as a person who really values diversity in all forms on your teams, what are the things that you look for if you were to see an applicant who on the surface you might think this person might not necessarily fit in with the rest of my team, maybe even from an age standpoint? What are the things that you look for in an interview process that would lead you to believe, oh, this doesn't even matter, it's just a number, they're clearly going to fit in because of A, B, and C? What is that? I want to find that out from you, but first I want to give it up to a word from one of our sponsors. All right, Lorenzo, so what is it that hiring leaders should be looking for when they want to kind of debunk this idea that on its surface, a person may not fit in with the rest of their team, but you want to make sure that you're hiring based on the contribution and you want to make sure you're valuing diversity and inclusion and making things like this happen? What do you look for that leads you to believe a person is going to fit in?
Well, I think first when it comes to just overall hiring, right? When you're reading a resume, like to your point, like I'm not necessarily looking at the amount of years of experience. I'm just simply looking at the experience, and I'm looking to see like, is there overlap here? Is like if we're in an industry, if it's specifically in retail, then you have an element of customer service and sales and service repair, things like that. Like, does somebody have some experience in these spaces? And it's a very wide net because you can gain customer, service experience and sales experience in a multitude of different places, right?
Sure.
So we kind of start there. I think when we get into a process, what we're talking about with people is things like, do you enjoy learning?
Right.
Do you like people? Like, I know it sounds funny. You've said this before on the podcast, but like, do you genuinely like people?
Right.
And are you curious about getting to know people and understanding them? Do you have a passion for wanting to work in a place of service? Do you see, a world of service when you help people? Like, these are all the things that are the most important to me. Everything else, I honestly could care less about because to me, those are the core elements. And then what I really want to make sure is that when I'm talking to people, that when I look across the table or I look through a camera on a virtual interview, that we see that reflection of our community, that we see people from all different backgrounds, all different experiences, that we see people in all different ages. Like, I want to see all of that mix because that's who our community is. And if I don't see those things, then that's where I'm going to really kind of dial in a little bit more, maybe into talking to hiring managers or recruiters to understand, is there something in our system that might be blocking some of this out unintentionally that we need to make sure that we're talking about, because that's our community. So again, for me, that's really what I look at. But I also have an eye for making sure that we do have a good, diverse amount of people, because I think that if we're truly, as leaders, committed to developing people, we also have to expose them to others that are different than them. Because I think that that's some of life's best learning and development, is when you then get to spend time with people that you normally wouldn't in your own circle of friends for whatever the reasons are. And then you do it work. And then you, again, if you're looking and you're assessing for curiosity and engagement and liking people and wanting to learn, what ends up happening is you start to have these moments where people are learning about one another. They're becoming more and more comfortable with people that are different than them. And I think that just helps people to be better people in the world. And that also then creates a great culture at work.
Right. I agree. I think this notion that leaders have to choose between diversity, especially from an age standpoint, but really from any element, diversity and the high performance, high quality of the team. To me, if you think that, what that means is that you don't know how to do anything besides look at who's applying. Like you don't know how to go out and find the right people, because if all you are looking at is people who have self-selected in, maybe you are getting the bottom of the barrel for a specific demographic of people, but the reason why you're getting the bottom of the barrel is because the quality individuals in whatever that demographic is, they don't like you or your organization, and they think they don't fit in there because, shocker, you haven't done a good job of making sure they felt like they could fit in there. And so a lot of leaders and a lot of organizations are working from a deficit in a lot of different demographics, age being one of them. And in order to kind of like stop this from happening, you have to reach out. You have to kind of coax that to happen and be proactive on solving the problem, not just hope that enough qualified people who fit that particular demographic apply, because that will never happen. That will never happen. You're going to be stuck feeling like, well, I can choose between the quality person or the person who meets the diversity quota. You haven't worked hard enough at the process if you feel like you have to make that decision. The decision should be, wow, I can get quality and I have a fully diverse team. And it's because I did the work and people feel like they're going to be supported when they're here, no matter what age they are.
Absolutely. And then when you have the opportunity and you're able to build a diverse team, then it's continually asking the people on your team to bring in more people that they know. Because at the end of the day, like, that's something that is very helpful. Again, when you have a diverse team and you're getting a balance of interest coming into the workforce, where you don't want to fall into the trap of asking your people to just continue to bring people that they know is when you don't have diversity, because then you're just going to continue to get the same thing over and over again. Because in life, people tend to hang out with people most like them. That's just a thing that happens. And so when you have people that represent different demographics on your team, making sure, number one, that they feel very welcome, that they feel included in what's going on, and that they feel a part of the team, but then also asking them, who else in their network, who else would they like to have come and join us that they feel would do great work here, is a really good way to continue to overcome what I think a lot of organizations are up against right now, which is just not enough.
Right. There's a great example I could give you here, and it's kind of semi-parenting related, and that's that, there's a kind of a trope or a joke that says you want to know who a dad's friends are. They're the parents of his children's friends, right? And what that stems from is just that, like, we don't have time to make friends. Like, I'm 42. I don't have time to go out and make new friends. So I'm friends with the people who are in my life already. And a lot of that is just people who are in the same place in life as me. Because it'd be hard to say to a person who was single with no kids to explain to them why you had to cancel plans at the last minute because a kid was sick. But to say that to another parent, they'd be like, "Oh, I totally get it." Like, they just move on. There's this kind of like commonality of the values, so to speak, that we hold. But that's all it is. It's a commonality of values, and nothing else has to be in common. And that's the exact same thing when it comes to, we talk about culture fit in an organization. That's all that is. You can be you can have a culture fit in your organization based on a culture of values, whatever those values are. That has nothing to do with looking around the room and seeing people that look like you or they're the same age as you or whatever that is. That means nothing. At 42 years old, with my oldest being 10, there are friends of other kids that I have who are 10 years older than me and 10 years younger than me because of where they decided to have kids in their life. But because we are all kind of in the same place in terms of what our values are, it just works out. And the number doesn't matter. We talk about the same stuff. So what it comes down to is making sure that the shared values are there and that the diversity is there, and not feeling like you have to choose between the two. You can accomplish both at the same time.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And have a great day.